All right, it's our fifth episode of the IHSA podcast. I think we're reaching about the halfway point of the season now, and if we haven't, it's super close. It's been a really fun season so far. I know our staff has been out to quite a few games, and we've seen a lot of good stuff, a lot of good arms, a lot of good players that popped up out of nowhere. But as always, kind of taking us through the first segment here is our pitcher of the week stuff, or our pitcher and hitter of the week, and Ham is going to take us through that.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, we'll start with the pitcher of the week. We got sophomore Jackson Heidemann from Harlem. He went 2-0 on the week, so two different outings. He totaled 10.1 innings pitched on the week with 17 strikeouts, just two walks, and just two hits allowed. So in a win over Rockford East, he fired a perfect game in 4 innings. He struck out 11 with 35 of his 44 pitches being strikes, so pounding the zone there. And then they won over Freeport later on, and he threw 6.1 innings in that one, just allowing two hits, two walks, and he punched out six there. So on the year, he's 3-0. He's got 19.1 innings pitched, a 1.8 ERA, a whip just over one, 33 strikeouts, and just 11 walks. And the stat that stood out to me just going over this was his opponent batting average is just under 150. So that's pretty legit for him. He's an arm we saw this winter, I believe, at the Madison ID, Wisconsin. He's up to 84, had three pitches. He's a nice little arm for Harlem there that will keep progressing throughout his prep career. And then for the hitter of the week, we got Jaden Patel. He's a guy that we've seen a lot of, and he's really starting to come into his own a bit. He popped at the state games. Was it this past summer? I think it was this past summer. Yeah. Popped there. Parkland commit now. He finished the week 11 for 20 with a home run, a triple, four doubles, 13 RBIs, 8 runs scored, four walks, and then six stolen bases. His best game came against South Elgin when he went 3 for 5 with three doubles, 4 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. So breaking down like their team before the year, we do the team previews and all that. He was the X factor for them, which was, there were some other guys that could have gotten it, but we had faith in him, just based like off his summer and where we think he's going to progress to. And he's really proven to be that X factor for them so far this year. He's batting 476 on the year, in 42 at bats, and he's got seven doubles, two triples, two home runs, 20 RBIs, and 15 runs scored. So having a really good year over there, and hopefully he keeps it rolling throughout the rest of the spring.
Yeah, thanks, Hammett. And as always, every Tuesday is when we release that story, and Hammett is usually the one that takes the lead on it, and our staff kind of goes through and we kind of vote on the submissions and who we think maybe had the best week to get that hitter and pitcher of the week. But moving on to the Power 25, the top seven teams in the Power 25 went 30-1 this week, Drew.
Yeah, really showed their strength here at the top of the state, Gavin, with all these top teams playing well, proving that they deserve to be at the top, and none more than Nazareth. They've been sitting towards the top of our rankings all year. They are still at number one. They are 21-0 now. They went 4-0 on the week. They outscored opponents 33-5, 33-5 on the week, and they just keep doing it. Keep proving that they're one of the top teams and they've yet to lose. They took a 3-game set from St. Patrick. They also beat Marian Catholic this week 7-3, and the train keeps rolling over there for the Roadrunners. But right behind them is Joliet Catholic, who was at number 2 for a while. They bounced back. Now they're back up one spot after another 4-0 week. They had a 3-game sweep of Marian Catholic. They also took down Niles Notre Dame. And just from an eye test perspective, they've been one of the top teams we've seen. We've talked about them ad nauseum now, but the pitching staff is as deep as it gets. They play really good baseball, and they are 16-2, hanging in there right there at number 2 in the state. And a couple teams making some waves inside the top 5. Huntley and Lincoln Way West. They're both up 2 spots. Huntley is now 17-1. They had a 5-0 week. They took 2 from Prairie Ridge. They knocked off Crystal Lake Central. They knocked off Hampshire 1-0, and then they took down Carmel from Indiana 11-1. Getting all kinds of good pitching from the looks of it. I mean, just looking at their game scores, they gave up 2 runs, no runs, no runs, no runs, and 1 run. So three runs on the week in 5 games. They're definitely getting it done on the mound defensively, and they are 17-1, like I said, up to number 3. And Lincoln Way West is 17-0. Talked about them a little bit last week as a team that we did not rank preseason, and they have just continued to earn it. They did it once again this week. They went 5-0. They're up to number 4. They had a highlight win against number 11 Joliet West last week. They won 7-5. They also took down Stagg. They took down Lockport, and they knocked off Oak Forest. So the Warriors over there, they've got it going. They have shown no signs of slowing down, and they are up to number 4. They're top ranking so far this spring. Providence Catholic, another huge week. They went 5-0 on the week. They are sitting at 15-3 now, and they're up to number 5 in the state. They're another team up 2 spots. Man, Coach Smith has his team going there. Looking at their box scores, they scored double-digit runs in every single game this week. They outscored opponents 61-8. It was a dominating week. They beat Loyola. They took 2 from DePaul College Prep. They knocked off Marist, and they knocked off Mount Carmel. Right behind them at number 6 is one of the most talented teams in the state, coming off back-to-back 4A state titles in Edwardsville. They are 12-6. They are playing good ball, and they had to drop. They're down 2 spots, and it was a harsh drop because they only had 1 loss on the week, and it came to the number 3 team in Kentucky, McCracken County, by a score of 1-0. But Gavin, you mentioned it at the top. I mean, the top 7 teams in the Power 25 went 30-1 on the week. So there's no margin for error right here when you're talking about the top 7 teams in the state. I mean, if you lose a game, it is hard. And you do tend to drop, even though we are still very high on the Tigers. Coach Funkhauser down there. We love their club. And they're at number 6. And then rounding out the top 10 here, we've got New Trier at number 7. They're coming off a 4-0 week. They went up 1 spot. They beat Niles West. They took 2 from Evanston, and then they also knocked off Barrington. Then St. Lawrence, they were sitting towards the top of the class in the top 3 for the last couple weeks, and this was their first real hiccup of the season. They went 2-3 on the week, playing a bunch of good teams. They dropped 6 spots. Their 2 wins were a 7-1 win over St. Ignatius. They also knocked off St. Rita 10-0. And then they played a bunch of close games in their 3 losses. They lost to Lyons Township 6-5. St. Rita got them 1-0. And Loyola took them down 3-1. Still very high on the Vikings. They're 17-4. They've got a true ace in Joel Olson. They're solid up and down the lineup offensively. But this was kind of their first real wake-up call of the spring, and we'll see how they bounce back from that. And right behind them is Downers Grove North. They are up 1 spot. They're another team that had a perfect week. They went 5-0. They had a 3-game sweep of Oak Park River Forest. They beat Hinsdale Central, and they also beat Layton 10-0. So they are number 9 right now. And number 10 is another team up 1 spot. Yet another team at the top of this list here that had an undefeated week. They went 4-0. Manuka 14-5. And they're another team that had a 3-game sweep. They took down Oswego East for 3, and then they also beat Lincoln Way East 5-0. So those are the top 10 teams in the state as we see them right now in the midway part of the season. A lot of talent on those teams, and they've earned it. They've done it on the field. They're sporting good records. They're coming off good weeks, and they'll be the teams that everybody's kind of shooting to knock off here, Gavin.
All right, and then, looking outside of the top 10, there were still a few teams that rose a couple spots this week, and Drew's also going to kind of take us through those teams.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. We've talked about them a lot here in our last couple calls, but Joliet West, they have steadily been climbing up this list all spring long, and this is the top ranking that they've had so far at number 11. They're up 2 spots. They were number 13, but a 4-1 week with a big win against Andrew 4-3, and then they also had a 3-game sweep over Joliet Central. Their one loss was a 7-5 game against Lincoln Way West. From what I understand, it was a battle of a game as well. So Joliet West keeps doing their thing. They're up 2 spots, and outside of them, there's 2 other clubs that are up 2 spots, working our way down towards the middle bottom of this list. But Sycamore now comes in at number 17, and Triad is now number 18 in the state. Sycamore had a 4-0 week with a 3-game sweep of Ottawa, and Sycamore now on the year is 14-0. And then you got Triad. Triad went 4-1 on the week with a 4-3 win over number 3 McCracken County, and they're the number 3 team in Kentucky when I reference their ranking there. And Triad is 14-6 on the season.
Yeah, and then every week we've been kind of seeing teams that are new to the Power 25 here. And this week's no different. At number 20, we've got Lions. They're 11-4. They had a 4-1 week. Haven't seen them, so he's going to kind of take us through that.
Yeah, they are one of the better pitching staffs in the state. They got a deep rotation, and they got a scrappy little lineup. They went and took 3 from York, who just made their Power 25 debut. One of those wins was against Ryan Sloan. So, they put together good at-bats. They knocked him out of the game pretty early. I know he's probably on a pitch count, but I think that kind of set the tone for that series. And then they took the next 2 games from him as well to finish this 3-game sweep. And then they went and knocked off number 2 St. Lawrence 6-5. So I mean, they caught our attention with the York sweep, and then they really capitalized and I don't know how to say like slam the door, I guess. I don't know. But when they took down St. Lawrence 6-5. So yeah, they're in at number 20.
Yeah, and looking at Glenwood, they're at number 21 now. 16-2. They had a 5-0 week, and they're a team that I think throughout the year we've kind of talked about potentially putting them into this Power 25. I know in the preseason they were definitely one that we were talking about, and Diego knew that they had some talented guys that we had seen this winter, so they've been kind of one that's been on the border for us, and they finally jumped in here now at number 21. This week they beat Normal U High, really talented team, and then earlier in the year they beat Brother Rice down at the Kickoff Classic, but they've got a really good team. Their only losses are to JCA and Triad, both Power 25 teams. And I saw them last week, so I'll kind of talk more about them a little bit later. But kind of looking outside the Power 25 at some of these teams to watch, Tyler's seen quite a few of these teams that he's been kind of taking a look at and kind of watching, so he's going to take us through some of those teams that he's been checking out.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. First team I want to touch on is St. Charles East. I have not seen them yet. None of us have yet. But they're 8-3. Obviously, they haven't played very many games yet this year, but certainly caught our eye. They took a game from number 13 Lake Park last week, who was number 9 at the time. But Joey Aaron is a guy to know for them. Two-way player. He's a junior going to Xavier. Pitches for him, and he also plays outfield. So they're certainly a team to keep tabs on. The next team I have is McHenry. Touched on them last week. Got to see them 2 weeks ago. They're 15-4. Got a very solid, talented trio of arms in Brandon Shannon, Bryson Elbrecht, and freshman Caden Wisniewski. So the beats continue to roll for McHenry, and we'll keep monitoring them as well.
Yeah, and then looking at Washington here, they're 12-4. They beat Normal Community this past week, 8-7. That was a Power 25 win for them. Carter Prena's at 2025. He's an uncommitted 2025. He went 2 for 3 with a home run, double, 3 RBIs, and 1 run scored in that game. And they're one of those teams down here in Central Illinois that's consistently one of the top teams, and they have a pretty good team this year, and they've obviously knocked off a good team in Normal Community. And then we've mentioned St. Joe Ogden quite a bit, but they're 21-2 now. Really quality team, some good wins for them on the year, and they've been kind of one that we've been checking out and just checking their records quite a bit just to see how they're doing. And then Sherrard, 14-2. They had a 2-1 week, but they've got an uncommitted left-handed pitcher. He's a junior, and Aiden Terranez, and he's a guy that we haven't seen yet. To my knowledge, our staff hasn't gotten a ton of looks at him, but he's one that we'll kind of have to check out and try and see in person if we can. And then Highland, they're 16-1-1. Diego actually got to see them this past week, so that's the team that he'll probably kind of mention below when we start talking about our game recaps. And then, Diego, you saw some other teams down there in Southern Illinois that are really talented as well, and Father McGivney and DeCoin.
Yeah, so Father McGivney, they were 2A last year. We've touched on them a bunch. They're 18-2 this year. They dropped down to 1A. And they, once again, look every bit the part of a true contender at that classification. They've lost 2 games on the year. One of them was to IMG Academy in Florida. And then they lost a conference matchup to Althoff Catholic. Since that game, they've allowed 4 runs, and they've scored 22, 9, 4, and 15. It's a pretty experienced group. A lot of the guys that play everyday roles for them are back from last year. They did lose some arms and a couple key bats, but they've replaced those with talented underclassmen. Omar Avalos is starting in center field, getting on base at over a 500 clip. They're good behind the plate with Nick Franklin. They have a really good up-the-middle duo in Drew Kleinheider and Cannon Camp, 2 really solid juniors. Isaac Wendler is getting it done for them out of the middle of that lineup as a physical right-handed bat. So the Griffins look every bit the part of a legitimate title team in Class 1A. And they kind of dipping down more into Southern Illinois. You got DuQuoin, who's 22-1, and Nashville, who's 19-1. They are actually playing for the conference championship game today. So the winner of that game later this afternoon will come away as conference champs. We touched on Nashville before. Wanted to give DuQuoin some love here. 22-1. They got to have some of the, if not the most wins, one of the most, the highest win totals in the entire state. Offensively, Jaden DeMarie, he's a junior. PJ Winters is their shortstop. He's a senior, led the team offensively last year. Camden Waller, a senior catcher, getting it done behind the plate for them. But really, the headliner for this DuQuoin team is talented freshman Cy Kraft. He's one of the top 2027 arms in the class. He's starting today, so a freshman starting in a huge game, probably their biggest game of the whole season. And he's also getting on base over 50% of the time. So DuQuoin, they got an awesome setup down there. It's an all-turf field, stadium-like feel. They're getting it done, 22-1, off to a great start.
Yeah, Drew, and then Morris. They're 15-3, a 4-0 week, and they're a team that we've kind of talked about these past couple of weeks in the podcast.
We have, so I'm not going to waste everybody's time rehashing it again. But 4-0 week, they are certainly on our radar. I got to see them one game down at the Kickoff Classic, and they were handling Freeburg rather easily, but ended up losing that game. So that game actually is one of the games in their loss column. But they have a win over Manuka, and they seem to be rolling. They had a 3-game sweep last week of LaSalle, Peru. They also beat Pontiac 17-3. We're probably going to need to get back out there and see them. Cody Del Vavro has been having a really good 2-way year for them. Jack Wheeler's a guy that's been hitting for them and has been helping on the mound as well. AJ and Griffin's Weirs are 2 names to know. Griffin's a junior uncommitted catcher that can swing the bat, hits in the middle of the order. Keegan Waters is one of their top arms. Anthony Sudeikis is an athletic outfielder for them. Brett Bounds does a little bit of everything. When I saw them, he started on the mound, also swings the bat, and play a lot of different infield positions. You've got Colin Pfeiffer, who does a little bit of everything for them too. He's a left-handed arm, left-handed bat. So there's other names on that roster that I'm not mentioning as well, who probably deserve it. But deep roster, talented team. Coach gets after it, and they are not forgotten by us.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. And then Hammett, you've got a list of 4 teams here that you've been kind of checking out throughout the season.
Yeah, I touched on Bartlett and Conant a couple weeks ago, but we'll touch on them briefly again. Yeah, Bartlett, they're 15-5. They went 4-1 on the week. They got Brandon Pellis at the top of that rotation, the high-level sophomore. And they got Josh Kalazi, too. He's a 2-way player for them. Good on both sides of the ball. I think he's been closing for them a little bit. So that's 2 good sophomores for them right there. And they got some other upperclassmen throughout that lineup that helps add depth. And then Conant, they're 12-3, 4-0 on the week. That's just a dynamic lineup with a lot of athletes, a lot of two sport like football players around there. So they're another team that we like. And then Wheaton Academy, they're 15-1, one of the better records in the state. They went 4-0 on the week, and they got Eric DaCosta over there, Cincinnati commit, doing it on both sides of the ball for them. And then St. Francis Wheaton, they're 13-3. They went 4-0. That's just a club that's always going to be well coached. They're always strong. They compete year in, year out, and they're proven this year to be no different.
Yeah, thanks, Hammett. And then kind of getting into our game recaps, I saw U-High and Glenwood this past week. Really, really high-level game. I mean, there's a lot of talented prospects on both of those teams. And I got to see Cam Appenzeller, one of the top pitchers in the state, one of the top pitchers in the entire 2025 class. Super easy mover. His fastball is in the upper 80s. He touched 90 and 91 in the first inning. He throws a hard slider at 76 to 78 with sweep. He was throwing it backdoor to right-handed hitters for swing and miss, and then he'd spot it up on the outside for a looking strike. He threw 6 innings, allowed 2 hits, no runs, walked 1, struck out 9, and he really just shut down that U-High team. And then looking at Will Paxson, he's an uncommitted 2025 right-handed pitcher for U-High. He started that game. His fastball was 85 to 88. Sat mostly straight. Not a ton of movement on it, but his breaking ball was probably his best pitch. Really quality spin at 2,400 to 2,500, sitting 68 to 71 miles an hour. He's just a really talented arm and an uncommitted junior to follow. But that Glenwood team, they won that game, and they're just a really scrappy team that will find ways to win. They got guys 1 through 9 that are just going to compete at the box. So a really talented team for Glenwood. And U-High, I kind of mentioned them last week, but they've got a deep lineup too. A lot of really good names and juniors and sophomores too, not just a senior heavy team. So both really, really solid teams down here in Central Illinois, and Glenwood, obviously, they're now number 21 in our Power 25 this week. Yeah, and then looking at Dunlap and East Peoria, that was another one I got to see last week. 2 of the top teams in the Middle Illini Conference going head to head. In the first matchup, Dunlap had taken the win. I believe it was 8-0. And then I got to see Dunlap and East Peoria again, and Dunlap won that game. It was 4-3. So really, some good arms good names on that Dunlap and East Peoria, those rosters. Davis Weeks was one that stood out for me for Dunlap. He's an uncommitted junior. I did not see him pitch, but he is also a very talented arm. He was playing shortstop, and he impressed defensively for me, just in the IO. Really like the actions. He moves well to both sides. He's got a good arm. And then at the plate, he hit a double, nearly hit it out to the left field, but it was a warning track double, hit in 2 runs for him. And then another one that really popped. I personally didn't know the name coming into this game, but a freshman, Eli McConaughey. He's playing second base and batted 5th for Dunlap, and he really stood out for me again defensively in IO. Just really good at actions, moving well around the ball, and a good transfer, good double play turns with Weeks up there or up the middle there. And then actually at the plate, he hit a home run too for them. And he was batting 5th. So really good look at him, and he's going to be one to watch for moving forward with this Dunlap team. And then Jackson Tresenreiter, he's an uncommitted 2025 that started on the mound for Dunlap, and his fastball was 85 to 87 with a lot of arm side run. Create a lot of swing and miss, and then his slider was 72 to 74 with quality spin, and it was at 2,400. And he was throwing both those pitches for strikes. He finished the game throwing 4 innings pitched with 5 Ks. And then East Peoria, they had a couple guys too that didn't go into knowing. Augie Loans, he was playing first base. He's a 2026. Just a bigger body kid, but has some strength. Had some bat speed. And then RJ Duncan, he's an uncommitted 2026. He was on the mound. He worked his fastball up to 88, but it was mostly lower 80s throughout the game, and he didn't get the results that he wanted. But the velo's there at times, and he kind of spun it, just okay. But he's got a quick arm, and he's an interesting one down there for East Peoria as well. But for Diego, Highland and Muscuda, you saw a couple of games last week too. Edwardsville, Collinsville.
Kicked the week off on Monday with a Mississippi Valley Conference matchup between Highland and Muscuda. Gav, you touched on Highland earlier. They would end up splitting the conference set. They're 18-1-1 on the year, but the game I saw, Muscuda got them. They scored 2 runs in the bottom of the second inning, And that was really all the Indians needed because they got what they're used to getting from Austin Musso, who was really good on the mound. Once again, 5 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 8 strikeouts. Honestly, didn't have his best stuff. I think if you asked him, he'd tell you the same thing. But what really good arms do is they pitch through it when they don't have their best stuff, and that's what he did. Gave him a really efficient outing and turned the ball over to Wyatt Beer, who locked things down for the final 4 outs of the game. Highland actually did threaten late in the contest. They had a runner on second with less than 2 outs, but Wyatt Beer clutched up, got the save for the Indians. Trevor Geis, a senior from Mascoutah, going to Lincoln Land. He went 1 for 3. It's kind of a pretty good example of the box score not telling the whole story, even though he did have a double. His first at bat, he hit a frozen rope line drive right off the barrel to the shortstop. Next at bat, lined out deep to right field. It was a really good swing. He just hit it right to the guy. And then his final swing banged a double off the left center gap. It's more fluid than we had seen in the past. He's got bat speed. It's a great body. I could totally see him tacking on 15 to 20 more pounds in junior college and really leaving Lincoln Land as kind of a middle of the order slugger. And then for Highland, as you guys know here at the PBR Illinois crew, one of my favorite players in the whole state, Jake Otensmeyer, 2024, signed with Eastern Illinois, went 2 for 4 with a double, kind of a similar story. First at bat, he barrels a liner right to the third baseman, dropped it. They ruled it an error, probably should have been a hit. And then he drove one real deep into the right center gap for a double. It's a real athlete. He's a big-time basketball player at Highland. You watch him float around the outfield. He covers grass easy. The arm is loose. It's true. It plays with natural carry out the hand. I think he's got a pretty good chance at sticking in center field at the next level. And his swing, it's kind of your old school, shorter, compact, left-handed swing. He goes no batting gloves. He slaps the ball around the yard. Honestly, it's pretty comparable to Freddie Freeman in how short and compact and how he stays through the baseball. It's a true top of the order bat for me, and he's really been leading the way for them this entire spring. But that's a really good Highland club. They've got some pretty impressive wins on their resume. They've scored runs in bunches at times. They're going to pitch it. They love to muddy the game up. They'll bunt, they'll run, they'll delay, they'll do all the little things. They're extremely well coached, and that's a team that, once regionals, sectionals comes around, they're not going to be a tough out. They're not going to be a tough out for anybody. All of their pitchers fill up the strike zone with multiple pitches. In this look, they had Trent Clemens on the bump. He's a senior, signed with Quincy. Low 80s, spins a good breaking ball for strikes, real parachute changeup to keep guys off balance. So I came away super impressed with Highland. They just got the short end of the stick in this one. But the other game I saw, Collinsville, Edwardsville, probably one of, if not the best pitching matchups you'll get in the St. Louis area this entire spring. Ethan Bagwell, 2024, Mizzou signee on the bump for the K-Hawks. Joe Chirotto opposing him for Edwardsville. Edwardsville came away with a 5-4 win. Both teams scored a run in the 4th inning. Both teams scored 3 runs in the 5th inning. Edwardsville scored in the 6th on a wild pitch, and then they held the K-Hawks off the board the final 2 frames. You'll hear me talk about this from now until the day he graduates. I don't know if there's any pitcher in the entire state I enjoy watching more than Joe Chirotto. He is hyper, ultra competitive. Walked past him before the game. The kid looked absolutely dialed in. Wasn't talking to anybody, just ready to go. Gets on the mound. First inning, he's 91-93. First 2 innings, actually, 91-93. Held that, settled in around 88-91 as the game went on. It's a real carry fastball. He gets down the mound really good and backspins it up in the zone. Tons of strikes. He was throwing a slider in the low 80s up to 84 with really hard lateral action. So an 84 mile an hour slider, and then he'll come at you with kind of a bendy, more arcing curveball at 75 to 76 mile per hour for strikes. And honestly, the biggest thing that has really elevated Joe's status for me is he's throwing a real changeup now. He is comfortable throwing it to lefties. He sticks it on the arm side corner of the plate consistently, throws it at arm speed and sells it. It's got some natural fade to it. But honestly, before it was more fastball spin. Now it's fastball spin and change to keep you off balance. He can beat you with all 4 pitches in any count. Kid fills it up. He's a super athlete. When he's not pitching, he plays center field. He's a 6'8" runner with a huge arm, big twitch. So ultra fan. I mean, couldn't have any more positive things to say about Joe. And then on the other side, you got Ethan Bagwell, who had about 8, 10, maybe 12 pro scouts there to see him. Probably one of the more physical players in the whole state. He's every bit of 6'4", 235. He's got huge hands, muscle-bound frame that's packed with strength. Was up to 97 earlier in the spring. It was raining and it was really cold in this look. 92, 93, basically the whole game. He touched 92 in the 5th inning. More strikes than before, kind of gets around the baseball a little bit to cut it at times. And the biggest takeaway for me was the slider. His first start, the first time I saw him, it was his first time on the mound, not really trusting it, not really going to it a whole lot. This time, Edwardsville, conference opponent, they've seen him a few times in his high school career. He was ripping those things off like crazy. The first 2 pitches of the game to the leadoff guy, 2 banger sliders, 77, 80 miles an hour. When it's right, it's hard bite, big sweep. He'll throw it whenever he wants to. He got some really uncomfortable swings and misses. Kind of lost it as the game went on, but you can see why. 1, he's an SEC signee, and 2, there's pro guys going to see him every time he touches the mound. And honestly, the only other takeaway, Chase Milburn, sophomore for Edwardsville. He's been throwing the ball well, physical kid, 6'2", 195, still kind of a younger look in the face. Comes out, gives off a leadoff single, and then retires the next 6 batters to lock up the save. 83, 85, touching 86. Again, another Edwardsville arm that's throwing a really hard slider, 77 to 79 miles per hour, and he would throw it in any count to any hitter at any time. There was one at bat where he went slider, 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 slider to get an out. Like, for a sophomore and underclassman to come in a big spot, in a big atmosphere, in a conference game, and to get 6 outs in a row and to have that spin feel and spin confidence, it stood out a lot to me. So the Tigers are rolling, man. They're playing the toughest schedule in the state. They're winning games. They look every bit the part of another team that could take home the 4A state title once again.
Yeah, and Deese, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your 2nd spring down there in Southern Illinois, and you just consistently see some of those top arms in the state down there in that area. It's just consistently.
It's a hotbed, man. Guys. Every game you go to, even if it doesn't matter if it's a 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A school, where we're at, if we're in a cornfield, if we're in St. Louis, there's a good arm somewhere. They grow on trees down here. And the biggest thing, man, is they're all super competitive. Gav, we talked to Brett Huber on your Around the Bases podcast earlier. I think it was in January or February, and he consistently referenced blue collar mentality, kind of that chip on the shoulder, and all the guys down here really buy into that. They really take it on the mound. They wear it on their sleeves. They're super competitive. They get outs consistently. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch the arms down here.
Yeah, for sure. And then Hammett, yeah, you saw some games this past week too. Kind of take us through some of those games you saw and some of the biggest takeaways that you had.
So I was able to go out and see Lyons Township and York play on Monday. York won 11-3. They got out to an early lead, and they really never looked back. They got one of the top rotations in the state, starting with Tucker King, a right-hander going to Cincinnati. He started this game. He worked up to 92 early, cruised around 86, 89 throughout the rest of the game. It plays with heavy sink. His natural low 3/4 slot kind of creates that for him. And it sets up a sweeping slider around 76 to 79. And he'll also go to a changeup that he'll sell with arm speed around 81 to 83. So he threw it well that day. He threw it better than the line would suggest. And then Mercer Krantz came out of the bullpen for him, and he shut it down. He was working 80 to 84. Plays with some natural cut, which, if a guy naturally cuts the ball, it usually means they got a good breaking ball, and his breaking ball was good. It was playing around 72 to 74. And he went 3 1/3 innings, didn't allow a run, and just allowed 2 hits. Their lineup, it's scrappy top to bottom. I really liked their senior leadoff hitter, Michael Mango, going to Loris. He was playing second base for them. He's kind of a spark plug at the top of that lineup. Scrappy hitter. He stays direct, uses the whole field. He had a really good day. He tallied a few hits against a premium arm and Ryan Sloan that day. And then they got freshman Blake Ragsdale going to TCU. He starts at shortstop for him. He's an advanced defender for his age. And his strength will continue to trend up, as he fills out and goes throughout the ranks. But he's got a nice little athletic right-handed swing that, like I said, will continue to tick up as he gets older. But yeah, I mean, they got one of the top rotations in the state. After King, they go to Nathan Anderson, who's a left-handed pitcher, going to John A. Logan. I've seen him really well. It's a dynamic, sinking fastball, and he can get up into the upper 80s with it. And he's a competitor. He just attacks his zone. Really like him. And then they go to Brady Chambers right after him, Michigan State commit. Big, long body, 6'6", 210. He'll work in the upper 80s, and it gets on you quick. He really gets down the mound, releases it out front, and he's got a nice little sharp breaking ball to go with it. And then for York, a lot of me and a lot of other people were, mostly there to see him. There's about 40 pro guys there to see him, and he continues to look the part as a potential first day pick. Got up to 98 3 times in the first inning, cruised around 95 to 97. I was working at both sides of the plate, and it set up a short cutter that he was going to around 93, 94. He was kind of tugging it to his glove side a little bit, but it's a pitch that if he gets that down, it'll really complement the slider going that way. But yeah, he had his patented wipeout slider, working around 82 to 85 with 2-plane break, swing and miss. He was throwing it both for strikes and to his glove side. And then he filled out his arsenal with a changeup around 88, 89, and it had some late diving action. He really sells it with arm speed, moves just enough to get under barrels, and it darts really late. So yeah, solid 4-pitch mix for him. New York, they're a solid team. They made it to state last year. They got some core returning guys that we like. Chris Danko, Josh Fleming are just 2 guys we like in that lineup. And moving on, I believe it was Wednesday, I caught Lincoln Way West in Lockport, and Lincoln Way West won 10-4. Connor Essenberg was kind of the name of the game for the Warriors that day. Legit 2-way potential. He started on the mound. He was 89 to 92 for the first 3 innings, which was not expecting that, but I was, fired up that he did it. And he was still hitting 90 in the 4th inning. So ultra competitive, just goes right after guys, competes really well. It went to a sharp breaking ball, curveball around, 1-7 break in the mid 70s. And he'll go to a more lateral slider around 78 to 80, both for swing and miss. He was also showing a changeup around 80, 81 with heavy fading action. So he's got 4 real pitches that he can drop in for a strike at any time. And he hit out of the 2-hole for him. He finished today 3 for 5 with a triple, a double, and 3 RBIs, and also scored once. He put up some crazy exit velos over the winter. He was up to 105. So it was really nice to see it play in game, and we've seen it play in game before. But it was just good to see it again. And yeah, I was talking with their coach before the game. It's, their success really hasn't been due to one person per se. It's been kind of a whole team effort, and I could see that, scrappy lineup top to bottom. 7 different guys got hits on the day, so it was, right on cue with what coach said. Everyone's contributing. It's a deep lineup, and, there's really no holes in that lineup for them. And then Lockport, it's a young club, but they're very solid. They got 2 sophomores hitting 1 and 2. They got Adam Kozak and Colton Benitis at the top of the order. And they're both protected by Ryan Groberski, who's a guy that we've seen hit a ton. It seems like all that kid does is hit. He's going to Triton. And they started another sophomore on the mound, actually, Trace Schaff. I hope I said that right. Yeah, basketball player, big kid, long limbs. If I had to guess, he's probably 6'4", 6'5". Left-handed pitcher. He worked up to 78. He's a long, loose mover. He's going to get better. I mean, he's a basketball player. He's an athlete. If he continues to just work towards pitching, I heard pitching was new to him, so just continues to work at that. I mean, the sky's the limit for that kid. And then they got Dylan Nagel, who is probably more known for his prowess on the mound. He's going to Heartland. He's been doing some closing for him, but he actually hit a grand slam. He scored all 4 runs, or he drove in all 4 runs for him with a opposite field grand slam. So it was good to see him putting some work in with the bat. Yeah, Friday I caught Montini at Hinsdale Central for a first round matchup for the Do It Stevie's Way tournament. Montini won 10-8. Um, I guess you could call it a back and forth game. Montini was up big, 7-0, and then Hinsdale Central came all the way back and tied it at 7. But Montini would pull away again towards the end of the game, and they would ultimately win 10-8. But they're on a six game win streak now. They're 13-5-1. They have one of the more intimidating offenses in the state. We've said that before. They got UIC commit Dom Catalano, Iowa commit Cash Campbell, Miami, Ohio commit Quinn Boyer, Northwood commit AJ Manganello, EIU commit Drew Church, and that's 1-5. So it's one of the more potent offenses in the state, and I mean they proved it with the way they were swinging the bats. Cash Campbell's one of the best bats in the state. He had 2 doubles to the left center gap, super easy, effortless, quiet hands, just flicked it, stays through the zone, easy power the other way. He's going to really hit in college too. He started on the mound for them as well. He was up to 83 with a little breaking ball. And then they went to Drew Church to close it. More known for his prowess on the infield. He has big time actions. He looks like an absolute guy on the infield. But he was up to 86 on the mound, closing it out with a really good slider. The arm really works up there. Easy, fluid mover. I mean, if he wanted to, get some innings in college, if he really wanted to work at it, I'm sure he could because the arm really works up there. And they had 2 freshmen starting for them as well, with John Louise playing third and Julio Ayala playing second. And they're both, solid on the infield, very quality defenders. And John Louise, he's a more bigger physical kid, super simple right-handed swing. I think that bat's going to really play as he gets older. And then for Central, Dylan Kasab's kind of the cornerstone in that lineup, sophomore catcher. He had 2 hits on the day. He had a double, and he can really handle the staff behind the plate. It's quality catch and throw, but his arm really plays, limits the run game. And Central's a young team. They got 3 sophomores in the lineup. So yeah, they're a young team. They're not having the best year so far, but they got stuff to build off of in the coming years. And who knows, they might pick it up the rest of the year as well. They also started Jackson Clark, an uncommitted junior, big body, has to be at least 6'5". He got the start. He was up to 87. Super loose and easy mover for his size. Had a little short 11-5 breaking ball that he would go to, but the fastball came out really good, so that's a name to know. And then I saw Oswego East and Naperville Central on Saturday. And Oswego East went on to win 3-2. I mean, it was not the best day for baseball. It was cold. It was windy. So the bats were not, it was not a good day for the bats, pretty much. And sophomore Noah Dice proved that. He towed the rubber for Oswego. Just a sophomore. Through 6 1/3 innings, just allowed 2 hits on the day, 2 earned runs on the day, walked 2, and struck out 9. So he had a really good day. But yeah, for East, Don Batista, sophomore outfielder, covers a lot of ground. He's a guy that we've liked a lot, especially at the Rock. Plays the game hard, high motor, loose left-handed swing. Didn't really get a chance to hit in front of me. Walked twice, I believe, and then bunted for a hit. So, he's versatile. He is a menace on the base pass. I would not enjoy pitching to him and then dealing with him on the bases. But he can cover a lot of ground, like I said, in the outfield. True defender. He's kind of the captain out there. He takes charge. And then Jackson Tucker, he's a freshman. He got his first start on varsity. And he's one of the better looking bodies in that class for sure. Super projectable, lean, trim look. He's going to continue to grow into that frame. And he's a legit defender at shortstop. Super fluid, easy, natural actions, both in IO and in game. And he actually had a sac fly, so his first varsity RBI, I believe. And then for Naperville Central, Troy Cashel was kind of the name of the game for them, or offensively at least. He had 2 home runs in 2 at-bats, back-to-back at-bats. And it's a super simple, easy swing, and the ball was just flying off that barrel. So he's a good bat for them. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had from those games.
Sweet, thanks, Hammett. And then Tyler too, kind of rounding out our game recaps from last week. You saw 3 games. Kind of take us through some of those games and some of the top performers.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. It was a loaded week for me for sure. Starting on Monday, I saw a CCL Blue matchup between Mount Carmel and St. Rita. St. Rita won 7-2. They actually had a really good week overall this past week, but when I saw him, Chris McGrath is a senior going to Rock Valley. Tossed a complete game for the Mustangs and really just competed all game. Threw a ton of strikes, let his defense do their jobs and make plays for him. Um, he got the win for them. Louis Sisto is a two-way for the Mustangs to know. He's a senior going to South Suburban. Had a big day at the plate when I saw him. Had a couple hits, drove in a couple guys. He also tossed a complete game shutout against St. Lawrence later in the week. So a big week for Louis Sisto overall. Sir Jamison Jones, very highly touted catcher for the Mustangs as well. Really looked the part behind the dish, and the ball just sounds different coming off that kid's bat. He hit the ball hard every time up. Only had 1 hit, but the stat sheet's not going to do him any favors. I thought he hit the ball really well. And then on the Mount Carmel side, Anthony Chavez and Colin Adams had good days at the plate for Mount Carmel. Chavez is a highly touted 2026 for us. Really, his approach looked like, and I don't think his approach was bad the 2 weeks prior when I saw him, but I don't even know if he swung at a single pitch outside the zone on Monday. Just really mature. Seemed just very dialed in at the plate. Hit the ball really hard. Had 2 hits. And then for Colin Adams, he's the leadoff guy for the Caravan, and he just does his job. I saw him 2 weeks ago against De La Salle, got on base 3 or 4 times. Saw him Monday, he got on base a couple times. Like, that kid just finds a way to get on base. So that's what I had for Monday. On Thursday, I got to see number 7 Providence Catholic at the time face DePaul College Prep. They won 10-0. It was a big day for Cooper Eggert, both on the mound and at the plate. He's a very smooth mover at, I believe, 6'3" for the Celtics. Was running his fastball 84-86, touched 87 a couple times the first inning, but had a really nice, sharp, late-breaking slider to go off of his fastball for swing and miss when he needed it. And then at the plate, he's a left-handed hitter. Walked twice and tripled in his second at-bat on a ball he sent to deep center field out at Kerry Wood. And he's just a smooth – I just describe his overall game as smooth. He was smooth around the bases. He has like this quiet swagger about him in the box, which I really like. And then John Greenwood also for Providence Catholic had a big day offensively, had 2 hits, drove in 3 runs, I believe. He's going to North Park. And then Enzo Infelice and Jackson Smith both had solid overall days, both with the glove and the bat. Enzo Infelice is going to Oklahoma. He's a junior. Has a very strong arm behind the dish. He backpicked a runner in between second and third late in the game. DePaul College Prep wasn't running on him out of respect for his arm, and rightfully so. And Jackson Smith is just a solid player. Plays shortstop for Pravi. He's going to Bradley. He's just solid all around. With the glove, he made play after play. He also had a single, and he actually put a really good swing on the ball. His second at bat, sent a ball to deep center field, and the center fielder Dylan Hecht for DePaul College Prep he had to cover 40 plus feet of ground to make the catch, and so he has nothing to show for probably his best swing of the night that day. But and then on the DePaul College Prep side, Benny Espinoza had a 2-hit game. Really just impressed with like his maturity in the box. He was facing a very talented arm. Would have never known it. It just seemed like a walk in the park for the kid. He had 2 hits, played a really solid second base defensively as well. So then moving over, I went out to another game Saturday morning. Saw St. Patrick versus St. Viator. St. Viator won 4-2 that game. Alistair Kanya, I hope I'm saying that last name right, Alistair, but he is an uncommitted junior. He tossed a complete game as well when I saw him. Another guy that was just pitching to contact and letting his defense work. And that St. Viator defense, especially up the middle with their catcher, shortstop, and center field, is just very, very good, very talented. Brandon Thompson does the catching behind the plate. Looks every part of a high-level backstop in the 2026 class, just with his actions, his arm, his glove. He's a very soft receiver. And then Ryan Jackson, their shortstop, made two very advanced plays off deflections in that game. And he's very accurate from from varied angles with his throws across the infield. And then Charlie Ferraza played center field for the Lions and was covering just a ton of ground. He had to go deep, for a couple balls and was making plays out there in center field for them. So really good day defensively for the Lions. And then Brian Hatch is a senior going to Valparaiso. Very physically imposing frame. He plays first base. He had a 2-hit day and drove in 3 for the Lions. So St. Viator is probably a team that's going to, get more and more on our radar. They're playing good ball right now. They're 14-6. So just some to tuck away. And then for St. Patrick, they had a couple arms that threw the ball well. I mean, they only gave up 4 runs. I thought they both competed. And Elias Alvarado got the start. He's an uncommitted junior. He really popped for us this winter at the preseason All-State with just his spin metrics with both his fastball and the slider. And it was every bit as advertised in game, which is always nice to see. He can run it up to 3,000 RPMs on a slider, which for a high school kid is very, very impressive. And then Patty Roth, he's a top-ranked arm in the sophomore class in the state for us, and he looked the part. Was running up. He touched 88 a couple times his first inning of work and had a late-breaking slider to go with it that he could go to for swing and miss and for weak contact when he needed it. He punched out 4 in his 2 innings of work, but those 2 guys threw the ball really well for St. Patrick despite the loss.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Tyler, and thanks, guys, for taking us through those games. I'm really excited for the rest of this IHSA season to play out. Personally, it is like one of my favorite times of the year that on our calendar, and just looking through these teams and watching them is just so much fun. Like I'm not sure exactly when this will get released, but tonight I get to see Luke Teschke versus Henry Brummel, 2 of the top senior arms in that 2024 class. So it should be a fun one, and it's just consistently we always get to see good stuff and see guys pop up that we don't know about during the spring season. So it's a lot of fun. But appreciate you guys listening to this episode. This is our 5th episode of the IHSA podcast. So just be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the podcasts or anything else that we produce. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.